I know you're out there. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
The KrisAnne Hall Show.
Any varmint that crosses that lady's path has met its match.
Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the KrisAnne Hall Show. KrisAnne Hall here, KrisAnnehall.com. Liberty over security, principle over party, and truth over your favorite personality. I don't know if you are following the Dakota Access Pipeline construction story and the protests by those people who live there, especially the protests by the Native Americans on their land, mind you, their land, because the Native Americans, their reservations are sovereign countries. They are not part of the United States. And, I think, once again, human nature has created this problem, and lack of education has created this problem, lack of understanding of government. We have the reservations are actually foreign countries within the soil of America, and yet we have the Native Americans continually inviting our federal government into their country to do things for them. And it's really stolen the sovereignty from those reservations, stolen their ability to govern themselves. And now we're seeing a bit of fallout from that with the Dakota Access Pipeline. This is the pipeline being run through America to bring oil from North Dakota's oil fields through South Dakota and Iowa to an existing pipeline in Patoka, Illinois. And what has happened is the Rock Sioux Reservation and their people have challenged. Sorry, I'm having trouble forming my words this morning. Have challenged the Army Corps of Engineers permits for this pipeline to cross over several bodies of water. And actually, I think it's not several, it's more than 200 water crossings, they say. And the tribal leaders allege that the project violates several federal laws and will harm their water supplies. They also say that ancient sites have been disturbed already during the construction. The tribe's chairman, Dave Archambault II, spoke at the state capitol there in North Dakota in front of several hundred people, carrying signs that said, "Respect our water, water is sacred." And he, this protest and this challenge saw the federal court actually side with the Corporation Energy Transfer Partners, allowing the company to continue construction on this Dakota Access Pipeline. So that's sort of the generalized backfill of this story. And I say very general because obviously there are a great lot of details in here. But I want to address this from a constitutional perspective. And the fact that our federal government should be allowed to take a pipeline across a foreign country without their permission is just simply mind-boggling. I mean, I can't imagine that happening somewhere in Europe. And I think, once again, it's because we've lost this concept that these reservations are foreign countries within our own soil. They are not the United States of America. They were actually carved out on purpose so that the Native Americans could maintain their sovereignty, maintain their governments, and not have to acquiesce to United States law. That is a contract that the U.S. government, a treaty that the U.S. government made with these tribes, you know, at the formation of who we are and during the formation of our states. A lot of the confusion that we have in our Western state constitutions deal with the fact that the federal government required these states to carve out sections of their land for the maintenance of the sovereign governments of these Indian tribes. And so now we have foreign countries, and we need to say it like that because that's exactly what they are. We have foreign countries being invaded by the American corporations authorized by the American government to use their land without their permission, and now they're having to sue our government in our federal courts. If the Indian tribes actually realized the sovereign nature of their countries, this would not be something that you would sue over. I mean, can you imagine, I don't know, a European country just simply barreling through with a pipeline of their neighboring country? I mean, they would see that as an act of war. And I think we're very, very fortunate that these Indian tribes are not viewing this as an act of war. I think it very well is an act of war for our government to be invading a foreign country like this and just simply taking over their land. That is just crazy. And so, not only that, I mean, disturbing their sacred places. It's just mind-boggling to me. But I think once again, it's this lack of education, this lack of understanding of the limited nature of our federal government. North Dakota, which has a foreign country within its borders, should be doing everything that they can to protect that foreign country from invasion, even from our own federal government. Because the bottom line is, if the Rock-Sioux tribe, the standing Rock-Sioux tribe, ever wakes up and realizes who they are, it's North Dakota that's the people that are going to pay the price. If the standing Rock-Sioux tribe actually wakes up and realizes, hey, we're a sovereign government and we're being invaded by a foreign government, it is North Dakota that will pay the price. And I just, again, sticking with this constitutionally, so the federal court has sided with the corporation, which, by the way, is actually not a free and independent corporation, because we have the federal government sticking their fingers in there. We have subsidies, we have permitting, we have all of these things that the federal government has to prefer one corporation over another. Remember our series, our show last week, this is actually fascism, when the government issues permits based on their criteria, and then their criteria becomes based on your pay to play. And that's the problem in America. There is no free market system. You see, if the Energy Transfer Partners actually had to work under free market system, instead of the force of government, they would not be able to use eminent domain to create a pipeline across America so that they could have profits, right? So this is not a public need, this pipeline. This is not being built by the federal government. This is not being built by the state of North Dakota and South Dakota and the states all the way to Illinois. This is being built by a private corporation. Private corporations should not even have access to eminent domain. It should be all completely based on the private market system, in which the energy transfer partners should have to purchase this land from the people at a price negotiated by the owners of those lands with the permission of those people on those lands. And if they didn't get permission of those people, then they should have to construct around their land. That's the way it's supposed to work. But now that we have a fascist system in America, we allow private corporations to have access to government power for a government power that's supposed to be limited. I mean, the most limited government power should be eminent domain. And now we have them running roughshod over America and over the people and over foreign countries. And so we have the federal court siding with the corporation. Enter in the Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, and the Department of Army, meaning the Army Corps of Engineers. And I want to read to you this statement. The Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, and the Department of Army quickly overruled the court's decisions. I want that to sort of sink in for just 1 second. The Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, and the Army Corps of Engineers has overruled the federal court. They are nullifying the federal court's opinion in this matter.
KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
The Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Interior nullifying a federal court's opinion is extremely relevant, because the federal government and those who are your federal supremacists would be completely outraged at the idea that you or I or a state would overrule a federal court opinion. But here they are allowed to do it themselves. The federal court, which is supposed to have jurisdiction over the federal government, it doesn't have jurisdiction over the states. It doesn't have jurisdiction over the people unless those people are in the federal courtroom. Now has overruled the jurisdiction of its own court. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have the authority to do that, because if the federal court's opinions are not consistent with the Constitution, then of course they should be ignored. But I want to read to you this segment from the statement by the Department of Justice. Quote, "The Department of Justice, the Department of Army, and the Department of Interior issued the following statement regarding Standing Rock Sioux Tribe v. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We appreciate the District Court's opinion on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' compliance with the National Historic Preservation Act. However, important issues raised by the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and other tribal nations and their members regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline specifically, and pipeline-related decision-making generally remain. Therefore, the Department of Army, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Interior will take the following steps. The Army will not authorize constructing the Dakota Access Pipeline on Corps land bordering under Lake Oath until it can determine whether it will need to reconsider any of its previous decisions regarding Lake Oahe site under the National Environmental Policy Act and other federal laws. Therefore, construction of the pipeline on Army Corps land bordering or under Lake Oahe will not go forward at this time. Isn't that interesting? Raise your hand if you if you heard something in those statements that should have just slapped you in the face. How about Army Corps land? The Army Corps of Engineers owns land, according to the Department of Interior. I wonder, Article Section Clause that allows the Army Corps of Engineers to own land. Did they purchase that land from North Dakota at fair market value with their permission? And are they operating a fort, a dockyard, a magazine as required by the Constitution of the United States? What exactly are the terms in which the Army Corps of Engineers has their own land bordering and under the lake? Therefore, construction of the pipeline on Army Corps land bordering or under the lake will not go forward at this time. See, I'm all for nullification. I'm really excited that the federal government is nullifying a federal court opinion, because here's the deal. The federal government has no power that the people don't possess first. So if the federal government is exercising a power, that means the people hold that power first. No power originates in the federal government. There is no power that the federal government can exercise that no one else owns. Remember, the 10th Amendment is very clear. The powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or to the people. That delegated power is a temporary trust of authority or responsibility from a higher power to a lower power. A temporary trust of authority and responsibility, meaning they work for us. We've delegated that power. And the moment they don't use that power the way we want it to, we can fire them and the power returns to us.
So don't let them steal your light. Don't let them break your stride. There is light on the other side. You'll see all the raindrops falling me. It's a revolution.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
Our federal government is so hypocritical. So we have protests of a corporation over the theft of land. And then here's what they say. Quote, finally, we support the rights of all Americans to assemble and speak freely. We urge everyone involved in protest or pipeline activities to adhere to the principles of nonviolence. Of course, anyone who commits violent or destructive acts may face criminal sanctions from federal, tribal, state, or local authorities. Yeah, first off, the Rock Sioux tribe are not Americans. Okay, they are their own country. Number two, federal sanctions for destructive acts or violence. I guess the terms are different when you protest a corporation stealing your land than when you protest the federal government stealing your land. I mean, we should be very aware of that, considering that the Malheur protest trials are continuing this week, in which the federal government, the Department of Justice, said we are going to prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law. Okay, so they didn't destroy anything. There were no violent acts by these people in the Malheur protest. And yet they're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and in a case where the people are protesting a corporation and not the government. They fully support the rights of all people to assemble and speak freely. I'll remind you that many of these protests are taking place on the property that allegedly belongs to this corporation. So here's the thing. Apparently you can criticize and protest a corporation and you're okay, your rights are just fine and you can speak freely, but you cannot protest the federal government because you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That is a complete inversion of the understanding of our rights. Now, I'm not saying that this corporation owns this land legally. I don't know if they went through the proper channels or if they used stolen power of eminent domain to take this land. But let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that this land belongs to this corporation. This is a private corporation. You do not have freedom of speech. You do not have a right of freedom of speech on a private corporate land. You don't have a right to freedom of speech on my property. It's private property. I can kick you off my property. I can ban you from my property. I can trespass you from my property because it's private. However, the federal government does not own land. The federal government operates in trust of the people. So even land that the federal government claims to own, even by their own admission, is public land. Public land that is supposed to be in trust for the people. That means public land. That means you and I own it. The federal government can't own anything. It's the taxpayers who own it. And it's the federal government who holds that in trust. As a matter of fact, Supreme Court opinion has made it very, very clear that public land is exactly where protests are supposed to be taken. You can look up a Supreme Court case after Supreme Court case in which they assert and reassert that public land is where protests are protected. I just want that to sink in because we have the Department of Justice completely confused. No, they're not confused. They're just confusing the people. That this public land is not where you protest, and you will be prosecuted to the highest extent of the law. And yet, private corporate land is where we support the rights of Americans to assemble and speak freely. I just, this is ignorance. It is absolute ignorance. They are preying on the ignorance of the people that they have created. Army Corps of Engineer land, the right to protest on private property, the lack of right, the removal of right, the prosecution for the exercise of your rights on public land. This is surely Orwellian if ever there were. And because the Malheur trials are this week, I think it's significant to talk about something here. Dennis Michael Lynch is covering this on his website. He is there, and the jury selection process began last week, Wednesday, for the trial of all the people from the Malheur protest. And here's the crazy thing. The U.S. Marshal Service has rules about certain clothing items that they won't allow at trial. They sent an email to the court and to the defendants banning ties, belts, handkerchiefs, cufflinks, steel-toed boots, shoes, shoelaces, shirt tie-down straps, safety pins, and shirt pocket pen protectors. Because they say these are safety precautions and these items can be used to harm federal agents. Isn't that weird? You can't wear a tie, belt, handkerchief, cufflinks, and they even included cowboy boots in this list, which are not steel-toed. Okay, so non-steel-toed cowboy boots are illegal for them to wear because they could harm federal agents. The TSA allows you to wear a tie, allows you to wear a belt. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to take my handkerchiefs out of my suitcase or my carry-on bag and show them to the TSA agent because they are harmful. They could kill somebody. This is nothing but an exercise of oppressive power. This is nothing but an exercise of dominion over the people so that they feel like they are subject to the federal government. Now, I did a little research about this whole thing about no ties because I remember O.J. Simpson wearing a tie in the courtroom. And so I did a little O.J. Simpson trial search with images, and there you have it. O.J. Simpson is wearing a tie in the courtroom. As a matter of fact, he wore a tie every day in the courtroom. So we actually have someone accused of murdering people allowed to wear a tie in the courtroom, and the Malheur protests who murdered no one, who harmed no one, who committed no act of violence whatsoever, they're not allowed to wear a tie. Again, this is not about safety. This is about beating people into submission. And the irony is, the federal agents who committed the violent act will not only be wearing ties, they will be carrying guns. And the people who were protesting peacefully, they can't have handkerchiefs. I wonder, could Jackie Chan actually, or Jet Li, because I'm thinking if anybody could, Jet Li, Jackie Chan could actually murder somebody with a handkerchief. I don't know. Does anybody else see this crazy? A shirt pocket pen protector is a danger to the federal government. Can you imagine if the federal government is allowed to proclaim that defendants in a courtroom where they are surrounded by federal agents who are armed, defendants who are not armed, surrounded by federal agents who are armed, cannot wear ties, belts, handkerchiefs, cufflinks, cowboy boots, shoelaces, shirt tie-down straps, safety pins, and shirt pocket pen protectors because they pose a safety threat to federal agents. What if there was an emergency? Could the federal government extend those clothing restrictions to the general population. If they can do it in a closed environment, then what would restrict them from doing that in a public environment? Because they could very well argue, well, in a courtroom, we are all armed and we have a way to, and it's a confined space where we actually have control. Well, this is now an emergency situation and we have the general public out there. So guess what? We can't possibly control this situation in the same way that we could control in a courtroom. Therefore, our requirements of safety, that the American people not wear ties, belts, handkerchiefs, cufflinks, cowboy boots, shoelaces, shirt tie-down strap, safety pins, and shirt pocket pen protectors, is absolutely even more necessary than it would be in a courtroom. You think that's tinfoil hat-ish? I would tell you that our framers would find this ridiculous. Banning clothes. I guess maybe shoelaces kill people now. We should have to get a federal permit to wear shoelaces and buy shoelaces, cufflinks, or handkerchiefs, those weapons of mass destruction. I want us to think about the ridiculous, because that is exactly how our federal government is operating today. The ridiculous, banning clothing because it will make the federal agents not safe. Wow, America. This is not even considered a fair trial. I don't even know how this even complies with any modicum of liberty that may remain in America.
The weapon of my choice, don't censor my voice. Hate me if you want, or love me if you can. If the truth is what you want, then you found your man. I ain't backing down, I ain't backing up. If you think like I think, then crank it on up. I won't back up, I don't back down. I've been raised up to stand my ground. Take my job, but not my guns. Tax my check till I ain't got none, except for the good Lord up above. I answered to no.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
Until we start thinking and challenging the thoughts and the processes of the federal government, until we get comfortable with that, things are not going to change in America, because that has to change here in our minds. It has to change here in our heads before it will ever actually change physically. You know, my friend Jason Stapleton broadcasts his show Monday through Friday at 1:05 Central Time, Monday through Friday, challenging this thought process, bringing a new perspective, a liberty perspective to the American people, Monday through Friday, 1:05 Central Time. And if you miss the live broadcast, you can go to his YouTube channel. So the live broadcast is on jasonstapleton.com, and he has his own YouTube channel where he posts his shows. Now he videos his show. He's a really amazing sort of studio. I've been in there. You can go to my YouTube channel and see the interview of Jason and I. Oh, actually, you can look. I'm looking at this. It's called Beyond the Soundbite. You can see the interview that Jason and I did together right there on his YouTube channel. And I want to encourage you to use Jason Stapleton as a resource for things that you don't hear on the KrisAnne Hall Show, and maybe even just things that you do, because it's always good to have another perspective. And I'm not ever telling you to believe everything that I say. I'm not telling you that I am the ultimate authority. But I will tell you that I am confident that what I give you is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, based on history, based on the Constitution, and based on truth. And that's all that I can give you. You can decide where you go from there and what you do. But I just want to think about something today, just in summary. We have our federal government invading foreign countries, supporting corporate theft of private property in foreign countries. I mean, it's bad enough it's our private property, right? But now we have them supporting theft of private property in foreign countries. And then we have the Army Corps of Engineers owning land. Under what conditions does the Army Corps of Engineers owning land? But I think the most amazing revelation from today's show is once again that the federal government recognizes nullification and that the federal government engages in nullification. They're fine with nullification. They endorse nullification by their actions, but only when the federal government isn't doing the nullifying and not when the people are doing it. Remember, all the power originates from the people. And the only power that the federal government can lawfully exercise is that power that has been duly delegated through the Constitution. Delegated, meaning that power still remains with the people and the states. And if the federal government is abusing the power that's been delegated, it is the right of the states, the right of the people to take that power back. North Dakota ought to be taking its land back from the federal government to protect the Rock Sioux tribe. North Dakota should be assisting its neighboring country, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, with the protection of its land. Because if the federal government can invade a foreign country and steal their land, then North Dakota is not safe either. As a matter of fact, North Dakota is its own country, remember? It is a sovereign state. That is not my opinion. That is not my interpretation. Those are actually the words of Chief Justice Roberts from the Supreme Court of the United States, that the states are separate and independent sovereigns. That is a direct quote. And it's time that we start understanding that our federal government is way, way out of line. And until we stand together, we will surely hang separate. God bless. See you tomorrow.